which is a California Supreme Court decision, which established what we call the ABC test to determine whether somebody is going to be an employee or an independent contractor. Right. So a business is supposed to look at that test and say, okay, if all of these things apply, then they're a contractor. If they don't, then they're an employee. So that decision happened, was put into effect in early 2018, and then AB 5 followed that. All AB 5 did was codify that decision into law so that we could actually, the decision itself, the Supreme Court decision was broad, and so this allowed, having AB 5 codified into law, allowed us to figure out who it actually applies to, and in some cases there were existing conflicts in law over, like, realtors, for example. They have their own special code in law, but because of Dynamex, we actually had to go ahead and put something into AB 5 that says it doesn't apply to them because there's a different code that applies to them. Uber and Lyft are now saying, oh, you know, it's because of this terrible law that just passed last year. Well, in fact, courts have found that they've been misclassifying their workers, their drivers, for years before AB 5 ever went into effect.
So in the simplest terms, why would you say that these drivers, let's get away from calling them workers or employees because that gets confusing, these drivers of all these companies, bike riders in certain instances, for delivery services, what in your eyes and in the state's eyes at this moment makes them not independent of these companies, essentially?
Yeah. Well, I think you have to ask yourself the basic question, is a driver his or her own boss? In other words, are they reporting to anybody? Are they setting their own rates, for example? You know, if I'm my own boss, then I can determine whether I want to charge $5 a ride or $25 a ride. They don't have the ability to do that because they're under the control of the company. They also can be let go. They can be discarded from the company, not based on their own volition, but based on the company's policies and procedures. So there's a lot of things that pretty clearly show that drivers are under the control of the companies in one way or another.
Now, that raises an interesting point, though, because independent contractors can be let go or just their services stop getting used by businesses that hire them on. If you're a business and you have an independent person come in and do your flooring, and then the next time the flooring needs to be done, you didn't like them, you use a different one. What's the difference there?
That's a fair point, but in that case, there's a contract between the independent contractor and between the person who's hiring the independent contractor. So if you're going to let me go in the middle of a job, I've got a contract that's going to say, you know, I'm still going to get paid X amount no matter what, right? Or it could have all kinds of stipulations that I put into it, right? So that I'm protecting myself as an independent contractor. And I am helping draft that contract that then the person who's hiring me signs. In the case of a driver, none of these things occur. So drivers don't have any say over their over what their contract with the companies says. They don't have any say over how much they get paid. That's all determined by an algorithm, which is, you know, very different, right? It's your boss, and some have drivers have described it this way, that my boss is actually an algorithm. It sets the rates. It sets, you know, all the terms and conditions under which I work. So it's a very different situation, but it doesn't mean that Uber and Lyft are off the hook.